fresh milk products. And how we started all this technology, because we have developed this biotechnology department with the start of the project on the Bhutan. And the first outbreak of the Bhutan occurred in Hisar in the Indo-Australian sheep breeding farm, with the import of several Rambule sheep from Australia. And within, because that time there was no quarantine, and within few days, few weeks, there was some illness in the sheep which were imported from the abroad, and there were symptoms, and those symptoms have never observed on the farm. They call these people from our university, they took the samples and they put in the cell culture, some CP cytopathic effect was seen. And because that time we didn't have this electron microscopy, we didn't have this PCR tools, the samples were sent for the identification of virus to the South African laboratory, which are the type culture center that time. And after 2 months, we got report that this is the gluten virus. This is serotype 1. And that was the first report of the gluten virus in our ISAR in Indo-Australian sheep breeding farm. After that, then when the department started, we were developing these serological tools. After having this department in August, in July 2003, then we thought that we should go for these nucleic acid based tests. That time we took the initiative for this PCR based technology, and that time I did my PhD as an in-service candidate on rotavirus, and for the first time in the university, I took that challenge to initiate the PCR in the university. And why we should go for nucleic acid based test? Because we know that the serological based assays, they are based on the antigen antibody, and they are protein in nature, they have key lock arrangement. And if the samples, they are not in the good condition, they are not in the stored properly, or they are not transported properly, the antigen or antibodies may be spoiled, which are present in the serum. And if high temperature is there, because during summer we have in Rajasthan, in Haryana, we have 48, 49 degree centigrade temperature. At this temperature, if samples are transported to our laboratory, it will take 3 to 4 days, and then the samples will be spoiled. If you test them for the presence of any pathogen, they don't give us the true picture, because they have been spoiled and their antigens have been destroyed. And that's why this nucleic acid, means DNA or RNA based tests, they are more hardy. You can say that these nucleic acid more stable as compared to proteins. So we can go for isolation even if the bacteria or virus, they are dead, even the pathogens are dead. Even then, we can have we can detect them by using biotechnological tools as positive or negative. So these are different, uh, and these are very useful for the organism like tuberculosis, which cannot be grown easily on the cultured medium. It takes months together to grow the mycobacterium. Then some anaerobic organisms are there which are not able to grow at normal conditions. We need very special conditions, and some viruses for which we don't have any system to cultivate or to isolate them. For them also, these biotechnological tools, they are very, very useful. And some highly infectious agent which are not able to culture, they could be detected like COVID-19. We though we have some Vero 9 cell facilities are there to grow these viruses, but even then they are very dangerous to grow. And PCR based as method are very easy to detect these pathogens in the samples. And even we have, if we have the sections of the tissues, we can detect pathogens in those sections also, in situ, by in situ hybridization. In situ PCR is there. And if these agents are in very low number, means they are not detected, the antibodies are very, very low, they are in low number, antibody titer is very low, so they can be detected by using these PCR assays. Because theoretically, one in PCR, one molecule can be multiplied by several million molecules through exponential multiplication. Sometimes some samples are very scanty or they are very rare. We can't want to use them. In those cases, also these biotechnological tools very useful for detection of the pathogens or for identification of the unknown samples. Or sometimes we have samples from the wildlife like tiger, or we can't get again and again. Those samples are very precious. For those type of samples, I will show you in next slide that how to process those samples and get the information, and how we can keep the wildlife healthy, and our domestic animals, our other animals healthy, pets healthy, by routinely testing them for different type of infectious agents. Routine checkup is very important, and our university is also providing the test facilities for different type of organisms like Bluetongue virus, herpes virus, Brucella, and BHV1, which are the OI listed diseases, and we are doing the certification for these type of diseases, and even canine parvovirus we are testing in our laboratory. And these techniques are very useful in molecular epidemiology, because when there is now everybody is clear about the epidemiological situation of the COVID-19. This is now the pandemic, and lots of outbreaks are there every day. Thousands of cases are reported in India, and India is now at the number 2 in the world in terms of the highest number of COVID-19 cases. And by targeting various genes of the pathogens, we can predict the virulence of the pathogen, and we can confirm by the cultivating them if we have the facilities and if they are able to grow. So animal forensic is also the area in which our department is working, and very important area. We have received 2 patents for this, and 2 patents we have filed for rotor diagnosis, which is the peptide based diagnosis, ELISA based diagnosis, and recombinant NDV vaccine with other multiple institutions. So, because in case of any pathogen, we need to know the brief history of the pathogen, means from which family it belongs, what is the nature of the pathogen. So, by using this nucleic acid based or biotechnological tools, we can know about the nature or virulence or the origin of the pathogens. And some pathogens, they are um, transferring from one animal to another animal, or animal to human beings, zoonotic infections, or even reverse zoonosis is also there. Like in case of COVID-19 in USA, in one of the zoo, there was a few tigers were died, and when they were tested, they found positive for coronavirus, and it is the same coronavirus which occurred in the human beings. And later on investigation, it was found out that the zoo taker was infected with the COVID-19. So the virus from the human has been transferred to the animals. This is the reverse osmosis. And many viruses, they transfer through the vectors. Means vectors could be the bats or the birds or the mosquitoes or any insect. So this is the prototype. Bluetongue is also the prototype arbovirus. Arbovirus means which are transmitted from the insects. So this is also transmitted by the Phyllocoidis midges. And almost all the arboviruses, they have to be handled in BSL-3 facilities. But this virus, because it is not going to do any harm to the human beings till date, no zoonotic infection has been reported by this Bluetongue. So it is acting as a, we can using that virus as a prototype arbovirus for developing various advanced and quick tests for point of care assay in the field. And these viruses, they become more complex when they have RNA, because if you search the history or even the today's situation of coronavirus, all these viruses whether you take as MERS or SARS or this swine flu, swine influenza, all belong to RNA family. And why all RNA viruses, they are so much mutated? The only reason is that in DNA virus we have the proofreading, but in RNA viruses there is no proofreading. That's why when they come in contact with the different host, different climate, different situations, they undergo fast mutations, and that's why every day we have new serotypes for those type of viruses. And when they have segmented genome, means as I'm showing you the Bluetongue virus, and similar is the case of rotavirus. Bluetongue virus has 10 segments, RNA segment. These are the RNA segment. Monocystotic, one gene, one protein. Theory is there. And similarly in rotavirus, and you must be aware of that for the first time India has developed first rotavirus for kids in India, which is from the strain which was from the asymptomatic neonate from AIDS, and that has been when it was tested by using molecular tools, it showed its two genes they have transferred or they have reassorted from the wine rotavirus. But because this virus was not causing any infection in the any symptoms in the neonate within in the kid with few days old, that virus was chosen as a vaccine prototype, and the vaccine has been used now successfully in the hospitals for protection of the neonates under 1 year of age or under 5 years of age for protecting to combat the rotavirus infection. And there and death due to rotavirus in animals as well as in human beings is the number one cause of this child mortality. So in a certain type of RNA viruses, two factors. One is that they are RNA. Number two, they are segmented genome. Number three, they are spread by the vectors. For example, Bluetongue virus, Culicoides species are important vector for transmission of the this virus, and um, and these the infection is very common in sheep and goat. Sheep are the most sensitive host, whereas the antibodies they are also produced in the cattle and buffalo and other wild ruminants like wild deer and deer. In our this deer park we had detected positive antibodies for Buddha, and these the vector the reservoirs which are not showing any symptoms, like in case of corona virus, the asymptomatic hosts are more dangerous for spreading the infection. Like in India also 70 to 75 to 80% are asymptomatic uh, persons which are not showing any symptoms, but they are the active source for transmission of the virus. Same way in animals also, sheep and goat, they are the sensitive host, but cattle and buffalo, uh, they are the carriers or the silent carriers for this virus. And when the these biting midges, which are blood sucking, they bite them because they are harboring the virus, not causing any harm to the host. But when these midges they bite them and they took the virus in their blood, and when they again bite the live host, sheep and goat, they transmit the infection to these animals, and that is how this infection spread by these vectors to the innocent or live animals, and they cause the outbreaks. And that virus causing economic losses to the small farmers, because sheep and goat, they are the property of the small farmers. They have they are there, you can say cow for them, for the small animal farmers. And if this infection or outbreak is there, because this is beyond control as they are spread by the Culicoides midges. And in case of just like malaria, billions and trillions of dollars has been spent on malaria, but till date we don't have any vaccine, we don't have any very effective drug for malaria to control the malaria. Same way we don't have vaccine or antiviral drug for these type of infections, and the control of vectors is the only measure to control the disease in the livestock. So these vectors, and the other important thing is that these vectors, they have huge diversity. Fulicoides, they have more than 1400 species, and we have to find out which species is transmitting which type of the virus. That is very very important. So this disease cycle is very very complex, especially in case of arboviruses. And in our Indo UK international project, we have studied this transmission of the virus through these Phyllocoides images, and we could identify. We have one example that this Phyllocoides peregrinus is the vector for transmission of the BTB23 serotypes. Because these viruses, these RNA viruses, they have huge diversity. If you take the example of Bluetongue virus, we have 29 serotypes all over the world, and all are transmitted by these Phyllocoides disease. And more than 1400 Phyllocoides diseases are there. Out of which 61 we have reported in our country during this project, and still date we don't know which virus, which Phyllocoides is responsible for transmission of which serotype. So that is the complexity of the disease itself. So remedies, that's why remedies are very very difficult to. And under in this all India network program on Bhutan, with the collective efforts of 11 centers for continuous 15 years, we were able to design this vaccine. We were able to develop this vaccine technology, and which is now very successful. And similarly, different diagnostic test has also been developed under this project. So these are the conventional methods which could be very useful, like isolation of virus, gold standard. And if we isolate the nucleic acid of the segmented genome, run on the page, isolate the segments and see the pattern, that is another gold standard test. And these viruses, we can grow them in the cell culture, and this is the 9 to 12 days old embryonated egg, chicken egg. And when we infect these chicken eggs with the unknown suspected samples, if virus is there, they are going to be uh, dead within 72 hours. Then we triturate, give 3 passages, and then isolate into the BHA21 cells. And we have C636 cell line, which is from the vector itself, and it is very sensitive for isolation of the viruses from the insect also. This is the C36. And this is the electron microscopy. These days, imaging is very, very important. Very advanced technology in the imaging has been carried out to test for the time dynamics, to study the dynamics of the disease, virus, pathogen, whether it is bacteria or parasite. We can have very good cameras like confocal cameras are there, confocal system is there, which can identify how these pathogens they grow in the cell lines, and how what changes are there, and how to stop them growing or entering into the host. So the segmented genome is there. This is for the rotavirus. 11 segments are there, and these are the gold standard. And by observing these pattern, we can say that this is rotavirus. If they have 4, 2, 3, 2 pattern is there of the nucleic acid, then it is rotavirus. If the pattern is other than this, it means it is non-group A, maybe B, C, D, or now till date we have H and I groups of rotavirus. So huge diversity is there in the viruses, or you name any pathogen. So this is the Bluetongue 3331 pattern is there. If there is misplacement or misnumbering of the samples, even then you can identify that they are segmented virus, and how many segments are there, you can identify the virus. And by using these biotechnological tools, we have identified very unique combination of the rotavirus G10P3. That was the first report from the buffaloes. It was similar to the simian or monkey's rotavirus. And there obviously, because in the farm we have trees, and on the trees we have monkeys, and because this virus is spread through fecal route, like COVID-19 also, it is now spreading through the respiratory or the airborne. Now it has proved. Otherwise, it has also, there are reports in the US that fecal route of transmission is also there. And if the virus goes into the sewage and the drinking water pipes, they get contaminated by the sewage water, the transmission of the virus into the other host is quite possible. So on the trees, the fecal content of the monkeys, they fall into the water of the this buffalo farm, and in the feed also. And if by mistake these viruses they get entry and they colonize, if the immune status of the calf is not very good, if it is very small, less than 1 month of age, quite possible that they get the infection. And because now this monkey virus has received the new host and they undergo mutations. So when it mutates, new serotypes come up, and this is the example of the jumping of the species from monkey to buffalo. And similarly, with group B, we reported for the first time in the buffalo calves. So based on all these achievements, the Hisar Center was named as the National Typing Center on Bhutan, and that we developed several diagnostic tests. We against all the 26 serotypes. Now we have more than 29 serotypes, and because different segments they have different meanings. Because some segments they are conserved, some are not conserved. So for diagnostic purpose, we target the conserved sequences of the segments, and for typing purpose, we target the variable regions of the genes which undergo mutations. So in case of gluten, we target VP NS1 gene, which is the non-structured protein and conserved for diagnostic purpose, and VP2 and VP5 genes for the typing purpose. Just for the example, in COVID-19, we have several now mutations are there because there is also RNA virus, and different countries have different type of mutations. And whole genome sequencing has been carried out, and it has showed that Indian this COVID-19 is different from other countries in with few sequences, and that's why developing a vaccine is very tough job on this type of viruses. Because this RNA virus is a very sensitive method for detection in the RT-PCR, reverse transcription PCR, and real-time PCR. RT-PCR much cheaper, and real-time PCR is a little bit expensive, and that's why we have tried certain gold nanoparticle based assays for field application. So this is the result of the PCR assays. PCR now every lab is using PCR for amplification of certain genes of the pathogens. And based on these, we can identify the source of origin of the animal from, because sometimes when there was outbreak of FMD in UK in 2006, that virus caused a havoc in the UK, and several thousand animals were killed because that virus never existed in that country, and that was leakage from the this vaccine company. Vaccine strain was leaked out in the drainage, and that causes that outbreaks. And in that time, India was suspected that India could be the cause for spread of this infection, because certain things have been imported from India. And that time they put sanctions on all the trades of India. Even the scientists on the airport, they were denied to board into the planes. Several flights were cancelled, and lots of economic losses were there, only on the thought that this virus has come from India. But later on, when using the biotechnological tools, that virus was sequenced, and when phylogeny tree was prepared, it was found it was not India, it was some other country from where the virus was isolated, and leakage from their own country. After that, the sanctions from India was lifted. And now, sometimes people ask, what do you do with the ATGCCC? What it tells about the virus? So, sequence of the genes is very, very important information generated out of the virus genome, because it tells about the when we collect those sequence and when we blast them, we use the bioinformatic tools and find the information about these viruses and draw the phylogenetic tree for that virus. We could identify from where the virus has come, whether it is from our country or it has come from other countries through unlegal vaccination protocols or some unlegal trade affairs. So that could be find out. So these phylogeny is very, very important. Sequencing tools are very, very important, and by sequencing we could identify that within India we have suppose we have 10 isolates of the mutant 9 serotype. Even they are also showing some difference within the serotypes. They are from Andhra or Kerala or Tamil Nadu. They are also showing the difference because of their uh, change in the sequence pattern, because of the mutations in the region, or in because they have passed through different hosts. So these sequencing tools, they are very, very important for identifying the virus, their source, um, their route of journey. This is same BT2, but this is the Italy, USA, and this is from India, and these are the all from the southern India isolates. You can see Mapu, Nagar, then Tirupati. They all are making one flat. These they are different from these in foreign, or you can say abroad, global stereotypes of the ETB2. So that is very important information for diagnosis, developing the new diagnostic tools, and for developing especially the vaccines. Then whole genome sequencing or the next generation sequencing are these days very, very important tool, because by sequencing one or two gene, you can have few informations that this type, this virus belong to this serotype, this genotype, and but not telling the exact picture of the segmented genome viruses, because there is exchange of the genome segments either in the host, in the vector, or in the environment. So to find out whether all the segments are from the same virus, or whether they are from the two virus, or maybe for more than two viruses, we have to go for whole genome sequencing of the all the segments, and we could find, and based on that we could find out that we isolated one mutant virus from sheep, sorry, from goat, and that was serotype 16, and one we isolated from sheep also, cattle also, and vector also. And when we compared them, we found that all have certain variation in their genome. And this was the first report from the board that splitting system has been whole genome sequence. Sometimes we are surprised that virus is the same, but it's more virulent in one host and less virulent in another host. Like COVID-19 also, it is more virulent in some population, but less virulent or less disease causing in certain populations. Especially in one report, in one paper published in Science, it was reported that Indian population genotype, they have more resistant to this virus. Same way, in case of blue tongue, it is more virulent in sheep as compared to goat, because goat sometimes don't show symptoms. They are silent host, but they show very mild symptoms like low fever, or sometimes uh, very small nasal discharge. But in sheep, it is uh, going to kill the animal. It is very high fever. There is all symptom respiratory distress is there, emotions are there. Why the same virus behave differently in two hosts? And then we studied this phenomena by taking the PBMC from the goat and the sheep. We infected them with the same serotype of the virus. Then we went for this RNA sequencing and transcriptome studies of these two viruses, these two population with the same virus, and we could identify different set of genes into two hosts. Means innate immunity is also playing very good role in causing the infection in a particular host. Same way, in just like we are reporting these days that COVID-19 in some population causing respiratory distress, in some population it is causing the skin rashes, in some population it is causing the this COVID toe in the especially in the kids where swelling is there, just like frostbite. So depending upon the host immune system, the virus are going to behave differently. So in that case, we have found that in case of goat, they have different set of genes expression, and in case of sheep, we have more expression of the genes. And when they were compared, we can find out the certain genes which are upregulated in sheep as compared to goat, and some genes they are down regulated in goat as compared to sheep, and that's why sheep they are suffering more than more with this virus as compared to goats. So this is the some genes are common, and these goats have they have more genes, and this is a sheep, and then those genes which were different, we validated by real-time PCR in, because these this is the in silico information, means this information is only present in the computer by using softwares. And the genes which have been identified that these are down-regulated or up-regulated in different those two species, then those genes were validated whether they are actually overexpressed or they are suppressed by the host by real-time PCR, and we could then confirm the case that these genes are responsible for active infection in sheep as compared to goat. So RNA-seq experimental data is huge data, and we have submitted that. And this is the real-time validation by using WIM and IRF3 genes. From the you can see the difference in the control and the infected. More expression in the infected, and the genes are whole genes are suppressed in the infected one as compared to control. So, what are the different type of tests we can employ when there is an infection? When we go for the animal health care or the human health care, or to have to study the epidemiology, or to find the zoonotic cases? So, what are the tools we can employ for testing those animals? Number one is the amplification method. We have to collect the sample from the infected animals, or their vectors, isolate the nucleic acid, RNA or DNA, whatever the genome is there, then go for amplification by targeting the suitable genes, because targeting a suitable gene is also very very important. Otherwise, we are not able to find the correct result. Like in COVID-19, we know that E gene is important, N gene is important, then S gene is important, right? ACE2 is important, and that's why we are targeting only those genes which are playing role in the entrance of the virus and then going to the respiratory system. Then we can probe. We can directly do the probing. We have the probe. We prepare the probes. We take the multiple samples, extract the nucleic acid. Then on the membrane we plot them, and by using probe in one go we can test all the samples. In PCR, there is limitations there. Now we have high throughput PCR machines in which several hundred samples can be targeted at one time. In small PCR machine, 48 or 96 samples can be done in one go. Then we can go for probe amplification, then signal amplification in case of gene chip. When we use RNA or DNA chip, I'm sure in the next slide, then we can go for the multiple samples. We can have to prepare the chip, whatever more genes. You know that in the small DNA chip, or you can say micro array, in microarray, 1 centimeter square slide contains 10,000 genes on 1 centimeter square area. And we have very high throughput technologies to imprint those genes on those glass slides and then use them as a DNA chip. And because all these methods, they have certain limitations, because we want very big machines, and PCR machines are required. Then their gel dog system is required, real-time PCR reagents are required, many things are required, centrifuge is required. So they when you have well-established labs, then it is okay, you can go for all these tests. But when you don't have all these facilities, then what to do? Then we have done certain nano-based assays, because gold nanoparticles easily can be prepared in the lab. We can use those gold nanoparticles, tag them with certain molecules or the labels, which can be an indicator of the reaction. Then we can test them on the simple glass slide or simple membrane strip, without using many heavy equipments. So we have used developed this dot blot assay on the membrane. By seeing the pink color in the dot, we can say the test is positive. Even from the vector, means culicoides, we can catch the culicoides. We got the culicoides, isolated the total RNA from the culicoides, and then that RNA was blotted on the membrane. And by using gold nanoparticle assay test, we got the tested positive. And you can quantitate also. So for the first time when we established this Newton laboratory, we use uh, the antigen antibody based serological based assays. But after that, we developed the nucleic acid based assay. Like this is the probe based nucleic acid probe based assay. This is the dot blot assay by using the antigen antibody. And recently, we have done the lateral flow assay. You must have seen for coronavirus also, COVID-19. From India, very cheap, 800 something rupees test is there, in which everything is there in the kit. Just pricking needle is also there. You take the blood, put on the test window with the help of a small this dropper is there, and within few seconds you can see your results. If one band is there, then it is negative. If two bands are there, it means you are positive within few minutes. Same way, this is also for the Bhutan, from the vector and the host. We can test within few minutes that is testing positive or negative. This is the gold nanoparticles which synthesize in our laboratory. And this is the genomic data of the transcriptome studies of the sheep and goat for Bhutan virus. These are the because electron microscopy, you can see these virus particles in the cells, in PHK21 cells, and uh, the outcome of all these efforts is the acceptance. Still, we are getting positive cases in Haryana also, and multiple infection is also there. Um, because we have found that one virus, one animal is suffering with more than one virus. Multiple virus infections are there. It is very common in rotavirus, and very common in the segmented nature of the viruses. The viruses which have segment in their genome, they are quite possible prone for the assortment of the viruses. And culicoides is also very good source for the reassortment, because this virus, unless it is the host is bitten by the culicoides, host is not going to get the infection, because some process of the virus takes place in the salivary glands of the host, these vectors, culicoides midges. And that's why when they bite the innocent host, the host get infected and show the disease symptoms. So these are different species. It is also very difficult to identify the species. You can see after taking meal, these midges become very heavy, and you can catch them. And we have special traps under the IndoUK project. We had special traps with blue and green LED light, and they have attraction for different type of lights, these midges and even mosquitoes. And you can capture and then go for identification of the with these vectors and identify them. We have the full guide which can be used for the detection or characterization of the these culicoides midges, whether they belong to the Imicola, whether it belongs to the Oxystroma, different species can be identified. And why we need this nanotechnology? Nano is now everybody talks about nano means very small nanoscale. These microbes, bacteria, while they are in the micro scales. Below that is the nanoscale 10 raised to power 9, and these nanoscales things now very popular in treatment of cancer, treatment of virus, antibody transmission, and for the treatment of many diseases, and even for the heart purpose, or even for the heart patients where all repairment is required or capillary cleaning is required, these small nano robots are very useful. You know on this scale how this is measured. And this is the different size particles, and by using these nano, so in our lab we have also synthesized multi-walled carbon nanotubes which are very light, and this cycle is very light. You can just put on the small finger tip. It's so light but very hardy or very strong because it is made up of carbon nanotubes. So their strength is very high, but they are lightweight. So that's why they are preferred for several preparations. So you can compare the human hair. This is the human single hair, and this is the nanofiber. So hair is much thicker than the as compared to nanofiber. They are very thin, very lightweight, and many multifaceted applications of the biotechnology and nanotechnology for the textile environment, aerospace, medicine, food and agriculture, then nutrition, transport. And this is how this nanoparticle they synthesize, and then they are tagged with the different antibodies or the antigens or the different tags, fluorescent tags, for to prepare to produce the uh, color or the fluorescence or any identification of the outcome of the result. So these we have prepared these nanoparticle based probes, and which are very sensitive, and they can just visually you can see whether the change is there or not. Test is positive or negative. If there is change in the color, means test is positive. If there is no change, it means test is negative. And I think those slides are just after that. So now very good technology. Lab on a chip is becoming very popular and very useful. Why we require a lab on a chip is there is no need for the very huge lab, very spacious lab, very heavy instruments. How these are going to work? This lab on the chip, how you can prepare it? So if you see this lab on a chip, it is a device. It integrates one or two several laboratories function in a single small chip, only in millimeter size. And you can see that this is the size of the chip, and several multiple functions can be carried out in this small chip. And instead of this very big lab, only all this work can be carried out on this chip. You can see very small slides are there. What we can do on this uh, chip, that just various chemical assays can be carried out. Even real-time PCR we can carry out on these chips for detection of the cells, bacteria, virus, anything can be detected. Then chemical applications are there. They are separating the reactors, chemical detection. Then biological application, cell culture means you can grow the cells in on these small chips and analyze them for different functions. Then immunoassay, electrophoresis can be carried out, and molecular mixture can be prepared. They can be used as a biosensor or drug screen testing screen, or they are single cell, just like for single cell proteomics, single cell metabolomics, they can be applied. So based on these nanoparticles, we can have naked eye based test. As I told you that we have also developed that test. And when you put these samples in that strip, two bands means positive result, and one band means negative result. So these gold nanoparticles are there. They bind to the sodium ascorbate and then change the color. If some sample they tag to some known targeted molecule color, there will be change in the color, and that's why you can identify, or these are the point of care test for early detection of the pathogens in the field. And there this is the loop mediated isothermal. You have to know that lamp is there, so it can be performed in this chip, integrated on the microfluidics chips detection of the pathogens, and multiplexing is there. Multiple detection can be tested in one go. These are miniature, very miniature things which have small capillaries, and some design is there. You must be knowing the, especially students now, they must be aware of 3D printing. So using 3D printing technology, these are fabricated. These channels, these designs, they are fabricated by using 3D technologies, and then we can use them for different purposes by doing electrophoresis or in silico PCR, in capillary PCR, real-time PCR, or any probe-based assays. And the beauty of this is that we need very, very small, tiny amount of the sample. And this is the just outflow of the microfluidic diagnostic method. This is the portable, means there you can keep these things in your pocket. They are very small, even less smaller than the pen or pencil. So they can be used, and very small capillaries are there, channels are there, in which different buffers, solutions you can put, and a system is there. Micro injections are there, which can be used for putting different type of solutions one after the another, and within few minutes you can have the results of the assay. So this is method used for the HIV antibodies in microfluidic channels. So this is the layout of those channels. This is how they have prepared and what they are putting in those channels. These uh, color patterns showing that different antigen, antibodies, molecules, biomolecules, they are being put together to form a reaction and to test the sample positive or negative. So this is how even one molecule in microliter can be detected by this microfluidics. Yes. So sensitive. So why we should use this microfluidics assay? Because sample saving, your sample is very less, only nanoliter, not micro. Only nanoliters are required. Faster is there, can heat whole small volume very quickly. That in PCR it takes many minutes to cool or to heat up the block, but here it takes just few fraction of seconds. Then integration is possible in this combined lots of steps in one single service, in one device. And novel physics diffusion, very simple principles are being applied in these chips and lead to the fast reaction. We can go for genetic analysis, high throughput biology, even chemical synthesis, metabolite analysis, and drug UV systems. So you can see here the different preparations of the molecular device. They are very small devices, and these are the microscopic pictures. So these can be used for food poisoning cases, wound infection, lung disease, and even biowarfare material can be tested by using. And if we compare the traditional way and this microfluidics technology, it's very rapid, less than 1 hour. The total system requires less than 1 hour. I will say only 10 minutes. But here 5 to 12 hours are required for processing one sample. So these are devices, these are the channels, this is for the PCR. That means PCR is carried out in small this chip. Channels are there, everything is same. temperature is also coming down, going up, solution is being changed. So everything is there. And recently it has been used for tuberculosis because we know that it takes long time, more than 1 month incubation period is there, and we are not, after 1 month we are not sure whether it is going to grow in the culture or not. Though patient may be positive or animal may be positive with the tuberculosis, still we are not sure. But this is very quick assay. We can, within few hours we can tell the result of the sample. So the not so distant future, in the near future, within 5 years or 5 to 7 years, this is going to be used in each and every laboratory, because this is going to be just like PCR. It is going to be very very cheap, though it is a little expensive. So these are the
Oh, right.
devices. Then digital, now very recent technology, the droplet digital PCR. Many of you heard about digital PCR. That is around 30-40 lakhs machine. And it is very simple. It is combination of the PCR and the real-time PCR, and all the things are done in one go. And this is the system I have seen in Anand Biotechnology department, and they are having this machine. They was installing that time. I could have the demo also. And these are the machines. Now, living cells means animal cell culture is also very very important part of biotechnology. How? And because they are the surrogate for lab animals. Because of ethical issues, now there is restriction on the use of animals in primates, and that's why it's very difficult to test the COVID vaccine, because lots of monkeys, apes, and chimps have been used, and volunteer humans are also doing this test. Now, many vaccines now they are prepared in the cell culture, and you must be knowing FMD vaccine, vaccine. We are prepared in the cell culture. Then polio, many human vaccine, they are coming in the cell culture. Initially, rabies vaccine, it was for animals. It was produced in the sheep brain, saturated, and it was very very inhuman practices. And now cell culture based in this rabies vaccine is also available. So it has hassles, lessen the hassles of the preparation of the vaccines. Antibodies of hybridoma, they are being produced, and even the single domain antibodies have been produced using these technologies. And through genetic engineering, you can express different type of genes, and you can produce the recombinant therapeutics like erythropoietin, heparin, clotting factors, then interferon B. All these can be produced by using this genetic engineering technology, which is part of the biotechnology. Then the very very important thing is the screening of the drugs, or screening of the cosmetics, or screening of the many many food grade items, which can we use the we use animals normally for testing those, so that they can be safe for human consumption. But now they could be tested in these small devices using the cell culture technology. Tissue engineering, again, very very important area in which scaffolds are prepared, and even the artificial bladder, pancreas, cartilage, skin, bone, everything can be prepared by using this tissue engineering. And now you must have heard about the organoids. 11 organoids have been prepared in the laboratories. Very good ebook is also there on the organoids. And now these organoids, they are being grown in the lab. So they are known as the lab grown organs. Means they are very small small chip like things are there. And even now COVID-19, many drugs are being tested in these organs, lab grown organs. Even lungs, 11 organs are brain, heart, lung, liver, spleen, kidney, and both the reproductive organs of the male and female. So they have been used. Even the uterus in one girl which was genetically infected by the uterus, there was no uterus. This cell-grown uterus was grafted, implanted, and that was the girl is okay, and every all the physiology is normal and it is being well in that particular girl. So these, when you have some lost some part of the body or even heart, these valves and all have been grown by using this technology. They can be replaced. Even if you in the coming 10 years down the road, if you cut your finger or cut your ear in the accident, your stem cells can be used to grow these organs in the laboratory, and they can be implanted or grafted on your skin, and they will grow to the full ear or full finger or full arm. So these are the future technologies which are now taking place into the laboratories. So this is the stem cell mediated therapy. Means stem cell, they can replace the damaged organs. All the organs, kidney, liver, cell, lung, spleen, all can be transplanted by growing your own stem cells into that particular organ. And so these are the example of the organ cultures. These are the organoids which have been fallopian tubes, human brain, mini heart, mini kidneys are there. Then these are the heart, kidney, lungs. Then human stomach is there, esophagus is there, vagina is there, fully lab-grown vaginas. Then liver cells, liver for liver transplant, ear can be grown and they can be transplanted into the human body. So tremendous applications are there for these technologies. Then cloning of the animal is very common, which is very useful part of the biotechnology. Then transgenic animals. Why we need transgenic animals? Now almost every species has been produced the transgenic animals, and even in plants also. These are the genetically modified golden rice, which are rich source of vitamin A, and these are very good for the children where below 5 years of age, where this blindness is the main cause for the deficiency of vitamin A. And this technology is very important for the animals which are endangered. These wild animals like tiger or the um, these some particular bird species, flamingos. Then we have these vultures which are extinct. Now they have been uh, grown, their population is um, improved by using these technologies. And this is very, everybody knows about this. This is uh, the India was on the world map when the this Mahima born from the Garima. This is the cloned buffalo which give birth to this cloned animal, the normal animal from the cloned buffalo, and that is in the canal, and that was totally okay. Still, it is okay and growing well. So these mammals, and this is the history. I won't go into the history. Dollies no more. Now this is the first cloned animal, and almost you name any species, all have been uh, grown by this using a transgenic technology. And we have lots and lots of applications of these animals, because for many pathogens we don't have any cell line, we don't have any host for which we can go for testing or go for pathophysiology of the disease to develop the drugs or the test or the vaccines. So these animals, they are very good source for those type of pathogens, to study their pathology and how they behave, pathophysiology, and then go for the development of the methods for treating the animals or the human beings. These all animals, and now these some animals, they are just for their pets are there, just for the decoration or for just for the amusement. But the cost is very high in abroad. Lots of things are going on. This carbon copy cat is, they are very popular, so cost is very high. And because now mule has been grown, because if we take the example of Indian army, we don't have almost half the number of mules which we required for high altitude army purposes, to carry the for load ferry and to carry the weapons, and we don't have sufficient animals. So this is the only method, only way to have the required number of animals, to produce the required number of animals. And now bulls, because we are in Haryana, we have this bull semen is very very expensive for having good genetic makeup of the animals. And these humanoid pigs, they are very very important, because if you take the human cells and the pig cells and fuse them and produce the humanoid pig, it can be used for the treatment of the many many and human diseases, and in a very successful operation, because size of the organs of the pig is equal to the size of the organs of the human, especially heart and kidney. So heart transplant plant has been carried out successfully by using this humanoid pig heart, and the same way other organs can be, and many drugs can be, which can be used consumed by the human beings, can be tested in the humanoid pigs. And they have pharmaceutical production role also, because any gene we can express them and produce in a large quantity. And this is the first cloned endangered animal by using this technology. This is a baby bull boar, which is extinct from at the verge of extinct. And cryoconservation and its production. This is now for human body also there is cryopreservation by three companies, international companies going on. They are charging very heavy charges for only head preservation, because now scientists are of the view that in the coming future the man is going to be immortal. They can find, because human beings are also machinery, and death means some impairment in the machinery. When they are able to find that impairment, they can again revive the human life. And that's why uh, if you see the YouTube's very big machines and LN2 cylinders are there, you have to tell your wish that you want to preserve yourself after the death, and the company will come, they will sign you, they will make the documents, and after your death, the hospital people, they will take out your whole blood, inject some fluid which can preserve your organs, and they will dip you by slowly uh, cooling your body. They will put into the big jars of the LN2, which are automatically controlled, and then they will charge around 50,000-60,000 for one full body, and 25,000 for one head. And they are of the opinion that one day they will be live and they will tell the stories of the past 15 years. So we can save the animals by cloning, um, and human cloning is banned totally because of the ethical issues. But if it is allowed, we can have different kind of human aliens. You can see around like this cartoon. So this is a cartoon that we show is that Elizabeth, I thought Bob passed away last year. So the wife said, no, I have cloned him. So you can clone your own cells, and you can then, using the surrogate mother, you can see yourself growing in front of you. You can enjoy your childhood and all the habits and the things which you were doing in your childhood. So this is wonderful technology. And this is the different type of transgenic mouse have been produced for different reasons. Like Alzheimer's is the now number one disease, which is the for which the scientists are finding the treatment. And neurological disorders, they can be find out by using this Alzheimer's mouse. Then onco mouse, just to study the cancer studies, means what changes are there. These mouse can be studied. Then we have smart mouse. They are the biological model engineered to express the some certain gene receptors, and to learn how they can how we can improve our lives. So these are the some fluorescent genes expressed in to see whether some unknown gene can be expressed, and where, because when we do for the first time, we don't know where is gene will go and where it will integrate and express itself. By adding fluorescent gene, you can find out where your gene protein is going to express. So by seeing this fluorescence, you can guess that your gene has been expressed in that particular part of the body. So this is the because we need these animals. This pashmina goat is very expensive. Pashmina is very expensive, and lots of goats are being killed for this pashmina. And sometimes duplicacy is also there. Some fraud is also there. So by using this technology, this first clone of Nuri has been produced from the pashmina goat to have more wool. And this is very good example of the recombinant technology, that this spider is stronger than this. The fiber of this spider is stronger than the steel. Means stronger than steel. That was on the front page of the magazine. How come? Because we know that these spiders, they produce some strings. These strings are produced, and these are producing nothing but the proteins. The scientists isolated that, and this is the wild. That is stronger, 1,000 times stronger than the household spiders. They clone their gene into the mammary gland of the goat, and this protein was expressed in the milk. They purify the protein, make the fiber, and they prepare the bulletproof jacket from the that fiber. That was very lightweight. Is otherwise bulletproof jacket 5 to 6 kgs are there. It is less than half kg, and it can be wear and very lightweight. And these type of technology can be prepared to put special suits for the space astronauts, or for the divers which go deep into the sea. So this I have seen this in the Albert Museum. Now, okay. So this is a, and now these are the genes, transgenic pigs expressing different type of genes. And now we have transgenic livestock also. Bioreactors means we can express certain genes in their milk, and that, like vitamin B or iron or calcium, more calcium, less fat milk can be produced by using these transgenic uh, animals. Using recombinant DNA technology, we can produce the cattle with the lactoferrin and interferons in their milk, and we can produce disease-resistant animals and sheep for good quality of the wool, and goat for expressing the plasminogen, which is very expensive. Then anti-throbbing factors, spider silk, or many more things can be produced in these animals. And they are of medical importance. The disease model can be used by reactor as for pharmaceutical production. Then xenotransplantation in the humanoid pigs for human organ transplantation. Then agriculture important means disease-resistant animals can be produced, and for improving the quality of the milk, meat, egg, and wool, and egg with the less yellow part, and meat with the less more lean meat with the less cholesterol, like this. These are the disease models, and in future these your owners or pet owners can be like this. If they go for gene cloning, they, by seeing them, you can identify their pets, or pets can look like their masters, and you can identify from which owner that belongs to. Then the very hot area is the artificial intelligence. Now this is the artificial intelligence and biotechnology. Now its time is less, so I won't go into very much detail, but we can understand the genomics. We can go for selective breeding by using artificial intelligence, and AI and machine learning applied for DNA sequencing, and much higher output is there, and very accurate is there, accuracy is there. Then the first company at Atomwise is the first company to apply the common type of machine, and they through CNN this network. Very good example is the Alexa. Then other example is the um, one more example is there, which is very commonly used now, very popular in application. And the Price Waterhouse Cooper, he estimated that AI will contribute to the global output with 15.7 trillion dollars by 2030, because now it is going to be capture the market, major market, AI and the machine learning, and they have shown that 44% companies they are using artificial intelligence for improving their research and development technologies. And mm, these technologies they are very important for business point of view. You can have crucial predictions by using, because now these artificial intelligence even for the science journals they have applied AI, and by applying this tool you understand that whether the reviewer is male or female, whether comments are biased or unbiased, whether they're intentional. So everything thing can be carried out by using AI technology. And you can have the, but it could be before, even for vaccine designing and the diagnostic test, you can plan using the artificial technology. And AI has been used for unknown identifying the unknown bacteria, virus, microbes, and they can identify better than our RT-PCR assays. Their results are there. And cattle has been now in the veterinary also, cattle can be fitted with the movement sensors. Means sensor will be there and you can identify when they will be in the heat, because in buffaloes this is the problem of silent heat. So onset of the estrus can be identified. Similarly these can be for the pigs. Or now IBM has started to begin engage on AI assistant for the veterinarians, because they can uh, decrease the download of the veterinarians, because they in foreign abroad also and in India also the good veterinarians they are under pressure. Lots of workload is there, so they will assist them in finding the in testing the animals, in finding the different physiological parameters. And they are very good source for testing the particular drugs, outcome of the drug before testing them into the animals. AI can detect what could be the outcome of the test in silico. Then microbiome samples can be tested from the gut, skin, and other areas of the body, and they can easily be compared. And these artificial intelligence now have been used for the animal health, and their feed has been um, what should be the ingredients of the feed, area wise, breed wise, age wise, can be detected by using the AI technology. So by putting the cameras, lives of disease prediction could be carried out. So with artificial intelligence want to relieve the pressure of the vets, and they can ultimately offer the high quality care to the animals. And Vet AI recently launched its first service, means a direct to the consumer app called Joy. Initially, this app provides the comprehensive symptoms checker for the animal ailments. Means general ailments can be checked immediately by using this with AI help. And then animal healthcare smart wearables are there which can be put into the pets, and many habits or data can be collected which can later be used for designing of the drugs, their feeds, and many more things, their bowls, their feeding bowls, their toys. So these are just like in human healthcare, veterinary healthcare or animal healthcare is also coming up with all these artificial intelligence things. And very good means is that drone. Um uh, this New Zealand has applied a Betty artificial intelligence application, and which decide whether the physical checkup is even warranted at the particular stage or a particular symptoms. In the animals, increase the accuracy of automated veterinary diagnostics tools, and also to study the pattern of the disease spread, means for epidemiological point of view it is very important. And these smart cameras are there and they can recognize their face, they can count the animals, very good for the wild life, uh, in the wildlife counting of the animals. They can recognize their faces. And the food specific monitoring is there. Amount of milk output means what is the feed and what is the outcome of the milk, and you can calculate the yield of the animal per yield of the milk per animal by using these tools. So very interesting. And this is the counting of the animals in the forest. Means it is very difficult to count these animals. Now by using this automatically identifying, counting, and describing wild animals in camera track images with deep learning. So these can be, first they identify the face, then they will they several layers will be there, and by solving those layers, you can have the output that buffalo is this much, zebra is this much, cheetahs and so much number, probability. They will show the probability, and then you can check it finally by using this deep neural network system of the AI. So Alexa is there, then Siri is there. Many of you will be aware of these techniques, these apps that are commonly used these days. Then Sophia is very important app which is used for the genetics, and there they can be collective. They can generate the data, genome sequencing data with much accuracy and much cheaper, and it has analyzed 150,000 patients genome, and that is very accurate. And the NGS data can be used for studying many characteristics, disease pattern, and many uh, drug therapy and the vaccine manufacturing. So IBM Watson, they have now used the technology to identify the novel drug targets, and this is for pharmaceuticals. This is the you can say this is very good approach in artificial intelligence, and you can have drug instead of years together. You can within few months you can have the new drug. So biomarkers can be identified to assess the biological age or state of the health of the animal or the human beings. These biomarkers, they are they have been observed by the machine learning, and they can study the human or animal behavior, and then we can diagnose their ailments. And this is very good example of the animal health. This AI powered apps and tools for farmers and veterinarians are coming up now, and the future AI in animal health is going to take a very good part. And these are the robots taking the dog for a walk on the street, maybe otherwise other way around. So they then we have this biotechnology application in the forensics, and now I will skip these because these are PCR based, and sequence based. You can identify the animal species, even the scat or the fecal sample, or any scat sample you can take from the um, forest, and you can identify how many species are there. If tiger is there, is the same place or if they are different, or sometimes there is fraud is there, or some coaching is there for the animals like the rhino and tusk for the elephants, and they just paid them to mask the tusk, so you can take the tusk extract DNA, you can check whether it is artificial or it is true tusk of the elephant. So sometimes they put pattern of the cheetah or the cheetah on the plastic or resin sheets, and they sell to the foreigners, our Indians, at the same price. The tiger skin, sometimes tiger skin is painted to hide the actual tiger skin because it is prohibited. So the truth uh, can be known by testing the DNA from the same sample, isolating the DNA, and testing by the PCR and speciation by the specific PCR. And the we can have a veterinarian can have very good um, career in the forensic science, because lots of branches are there in the forensics. So veterinary is the one field, other is the forensic science. So you can go, especially the student, this is for the students, they can opt for the forensic scientist, and they can go for any branch, toxicology, then we have anthropology. Lots of now mummies are work on mummies, and the even in the Rakhi Gadi in Haryana, we have Rakhi Gadi old civilian Harappan site is there. It is now dated that it is more than 5,000 years old. I have visited that site, and 60 burials were found, and two murder cases have been identified by using these technologies. And entomology, forensic entomology is also there, very good branch. Then these days now forensic psychiatry is now carried out because of COVID-19 lockdown. Many people they are now in depression, especially old age people and very young people who are not doing any work. So their mental state is not can be studied by using this. Then for an engineering branch is there, computer science is there, and while forensic scientist is very easy to go for a veterinarian. In this you can identify by identifying the hair, you can identify their race, whether they are Asian, they are African, European, Caucasian. You can identify when rhino the society is there. This rhino this horn is they are killed for their horns. I have recently seen one geographical movie. So they're very cruelty. You can poaching is can be curbed by using these techniques or tools. These are our patents, and we for the first time, though you can have some information from the conventional test, but they are microscopy. You if there is a tissue of the meat from the close related species, sheep and goat, you can't identify under microscope. You can identify pig meat from the chicken meat, but not from the sheep and goat or guy, which are very closely related. So for that and obvious drawbacks of serological methods, you know that they spoils if the samples are spoiled or not in a very good condition. These methods are not going to help, and even the hair follicle can be of much use as compared to the serum of that person, because hair follicle has the DNA. From the DNA you can find out so many things. And animal hair can also be identified under microscope, and by the width and the cortex and the these critical, you can identify their different species. Even Caucasian negroid and mangaloids can be identified by their hair structure. And sometimes we are there is fraud for we are cheated by the salesman that this is pashmina, this is angora, but they are nothing. So they can be identified by these protein based assays, but if they are not in a good condition, they are spoiled, then these methods are not going to do anything. Then microscope, you can under microscope you can differentiate the pashmina and the shatut, and by having the uh, cross sections you can identify them by their cortex and medulla. And DNA can, because you know that these proteins they are very specific, they are organ specific, because if we have protein from the blood only, certain type of proteins can be find out, but different tissues have different expression systems, and that's why uniform samples cannot be obtained from the animals. But if we take the blood or the hair or the bone, any sample for DNA can be taken. We have the same type of the outcome of the DNA from all these samples. So we can this is the sample which is more reliable for identification. And sometimes this is very important to find out, because the social lesion concerns are there. If somebody just put a piece of meat in front of mosque, they will think that some Hindus have cut the pig and they have put in the mosque. And some same way, if some piece of meat is in front of the temple, the Hindus will think that it is cow's meat, and some roids can begin on this issue. So by using these techniques, we can identify the species and avoid these type of um, cases. The challenges are there in the forensic, because sometimes samples they are very scanty, sometimes we don't have appropriate samples, and some endangered animal species only rare samples are there. So we can go for the fecal samples. Even this is very good thing that if the hair follicle can be used for identification of species, even scat samples can be used, or even dead skin or any part of the dead animal can be used for identification. Mitochondrial DNA, you know, is very good source for the um, evolutionary consequences. So phylogenetic analysis can be carried out, by doing this, it was known that for all the human race, there is only one mother from African origin, which is black, not white. And now, using AI technology, it there was on the front page of the magazine of the Science. Then, who is beyond that black mother? Means AI has find out that some uh, beyond that some other creature is there, which could be the source for origin of the human population. So through AI, artificial intelligence, many things are now discovered, even from the these excavation points. So this is the PISA technology. This is for students. Now it is going to be very late. So we will this is the simulation of the PCR, this application of DNA, how it is going inside the cells, and then same is mimicked in outside the cell using all the nucleotides, primer, DNA template for amplification of the gene, particular gene, to identify the disease pathogen or the any other important gene. So there's a many modification of the PCR. Like I told you, that droplet digital PCR is there. It is very sensitive, and it is more sensitive than the real time PCR. We don't need internal control for that, and this is very good example. I would like to discuss this few examples. Saddam Hussein was declared dead by US. How? First, the blood from or buccal swabs were taken from his first generation, very close cousins. When his buccal swab was taken, DNA was extracted, and their DNA was matched. When it was matched with his first cousins, then only he was declared dead. That is now he is dead. And this lost children, they can be identified by using this technology. This technology was used for the 9/11 tragedy in USA, when several hundred people, they were inside the buildings, and only droplets, blood droplet or skin tissue or hair follicles were taken from the articles and matched with their kith and kins, and they were declared their relatives. There is one, this is very good test for the paternity testing issues, and then property issues, and lost pet animal issues. And this is very, those senior people, they understand that this cat DNA evidence can be used for finding the lost cat and the culprit. Then property issues. This is very good example for students, that the teacher was teaching in the class, and the some mischievous boy, he just take a cotton, this paper ball, just put a saliva and make a ball and throw on the back of the teacher, but he turned and that hit his cheek, and he was very annoyed. He asked who has done it. Nobody claimed. Then from the suspected students, 4 students, 5 students, the DNA was taken, buccal swab was taken, and the DNA was extracted, and the DNA from the saliva on the paper ball was extracted. It was mashed, and then the one of the students was found culprit. Then he said, "Okay, sorry, I did this." So this is very strong technology, and there's no choice of. So this poaching, these issues can also be solved by using this DNA technology, DNA based assays. And this you can see here, this is the cruelty to animals, that for our, they are killing. So these are civet, and we have left this technology for isolation, several methods of isolation of DNA from the spoiled tissues, from the very old bones, because we have an autopsy section. The bones are digged in a very deep well, so we have taken out bones, old bones, and we isolate the DNA and identify the species. So this Shingara came to our clinics for postmortem, and you remember Salman's case for black buck killing in the Rajasthan. So these are the, then we got the assays for identification of species, and then uh, different enzymes can be, we have, you can use the universal primers which can amplify all the mammals, whether is irrespective of the wild animals, domestic animals, human beings, all mammals DNA can be amplified. Then you can use the restriction enzymes. The pattern can tell you the species of the animals, whether they are same or different. So RFS is the best method for identification of these animals. Then whole genome is actually very good tool. So you can, we have this, we had some samples from the zoo, and there was two tigers. One is Saurabh, other is Geeta. When we matched their DNA, they were from the, we thought they are from the Indian origin, but we found that Geeta, it was from the other continent, and it was running to the Indian zoo. So you can identify different animal species, big threads also. And same way we have identified the different deer species from our deer park. And even we could identify, we have designed the primers for identification of chick poultry from the peacock, blackbuck, nilgai. Then you can identify all the deer species. And these but technological tools are very good for study the zoonosis or zooanthropognosis. And anthropognosis means spread of the disease from animal to human and human to animal, vice versa. And we have to think about how these species jump the host. This is a very big question, and that's why corona, we are suffering with the coronavirus COVID-19. And this is a very good example in our laboratory that we had the sample from the lamb. It was found positive for rotavirus. It could not be tied with the animal rotaviruses. Then sequence-based typing showed that this lamb has, this small kid has rotavirus from the human origin, because G1, G2, they are of the human genotypes, and their P was also human origin. So this reverse osmosis has occurred in, that is quite possible because we all live in the rural area, sheep, goat, cattle, poultry, backyard poultry, children, they are playing in the same place, so that could happen very easily. And this is a very good example. Just this paper just came before the COVID-19, and this corona has jumped from camel to the buffalo in the rural area, and we found that this is from the camel region, coronavirus in buffalo from the fecal samples. And arboviruses, I told you that they are huge sector, and it's very huge studies to identify which arthropod is responsible for which type of the infection, bacteria, virus, or parasite. And these are the probable hosts and their pathogens, which can transmit the infection from directly to the human, or human can also transfer the infection to the animals. So symptomatic identification is very simple, but if it is not confusing, FMD, PPR, and Bruton, they are confusing, so we can have to do the differential diagnosis. For this, these tests are very, very useful. And if to control the disease, we have to control the vector. And if we have the biosensor, we have got the biosensor and genosensor for detection of these viruses from the these vectors also. So we can control the vector. We can identify when, if vector is positive for a particular virus, it means it is going to come into the animal or human population. So we can give the alarming warning to the health ministry or the health department, so that precautionary measures can be taken to avoid the spread of the virus or the disease. So these methods are very, very useful. And these are the calorimetric reaction we have built. So we have built the probes, is the genosensor, which can detect the virus presence of the infectious agent visually by changing the color. So we have detection the limitations also. Detection limit is very, very low. Even 0.0144 nanogram can be by using this assay. And this is from the Culicoides. If you can capture the Culicoides and do this, this is field-based test. You don't need, except water bath, you don't need anything. So if you have the hot plate or the water bath, you can identify the culprit. And this is the silencing of the gene. If you identify, like we have transcriptome studies we have done, and we have find the genes that these genes can be silenced. If they silence in the host, the disease can be controlled. We have done the studies in the BHA21 cells, and we were successful. These are lying for the patent. And then thank you very much for your attention. And uh, this is for the students. Don't stop your curiosity and don't stop your yourself from learning. And thank you very much to all for their patience and listening carefully to me. Thank you very much.